Hello, everyone. This is your Friendly Neighborhood Podcast. I'm Kyle Swope, and joining me is my co-host, Colin Donato. Today, we are discussing our opinions and reviewing Peacemaker Season 1. So, Colin, how are you doing today?
It's the same day as before, so still great.
Perfect. Except you changed the hat, so you know. Little costume change. Come to think of it, it's a bit more like in the color scheme, I suppose, if you think about it, too, of Peacemaker.
The red, white, blue.
Oh, yes, except it's the 76ers. But anyways, so yes, as we mentioned, today we are discussing Peacemaker Season 1. So, I have a synopsis that I will read. Peacemaker picks up following the events of the Suicide Squad, where Peacemaker joins a team of butterfly exterminators. So, that being said, Colin, in general, Peacemaker, how did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it?
Well, with all the previous superhero shows we've gotten from DC, like The Flash, Arrow, like in Smallville, Supergirl, like they've all kind of just had a first season and like a low budget, and they haven't had the best writing. It's kind of lacked great story and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Marvel's had like some really good story with like the Daredevil show, like. But what I like Peacemaker the most is it's unlike anything that's been done by Marvel or DC, and like even the new MCU shows we've all seen, they've all kind of been the exact same. They've all followed the same formula pretty much.
Yeah.
And this is like something completely different and like from any superhero show we've seen.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would definitely, as far as DC shows go, I would say this is probably the best one we have. Live action anyways. I mean, there's some awesome cartoons DC has. But yeah, as far as live action shows go, this season 1 has probably been my favorite. My second place would probably be Arrow, not gonna lie. At least like
the
first 2 seasons of Arrow. That was the problem.
Yeah. And have you watched Superman and Lois?
Yeah, so I started watching it. I thought it was really good, everything I saw, but then I haven't been able to keep up with it.
That's another really good DC show.
Oh, yeah, that one's definitely up there as well. But, yeah, so there's revealing my case. I also loved Peacemaker. I thought it was great. For a lot of the same reasons, I loved the Suicide Squad. Again, James Gunn, just everything he does is just really good. So that was awesome. Let's dive into it.
And what's funny is...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So with James Gunn, I think he wrote this like during all of COVID, if I'm correct.
He might have.
I think he just like sat down and wrote it all just in like a few days or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember reading that somewhere. I may not be correct, but...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't really know, because I know right shortly after they started doing the Suicide Squad, COVID hit. So it was like one of the last movies that DC pre-pandemic recorded. That's not the right word. They filmed pre-pandemic. And I know just a lot of people and John Cena just really loved the character and wanted to do more with it. So the impression I always got is that James Gunn just went up to Warner Brothers and he was like, hey, I have this idea. You mind if I do it? And they were like, sure. And then they just went ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with James Gunn.
Oh, yeah, definitely. James Gunn, again, so good. Yeah, well, let's dive in here. Let's talk about the characters, I suppose, first. Obviously, this picks up where the Suicide Squad left off. Obviously, Peacemaker, main character. And then you have at least 2 of the people from the Suicide Squad, the people working for Argus. We had... I'm terrible with character names, so I have a list from Wikipedia.
Amelia Harcourt.
Yeah, there's Harcourt.
And then Autonomous.
Yes, I forget what his name is. I just remember Diebeard. I'm really good with nicknames. And then we have Leota, who's Amanda Waller's daughter.
Yep, Autobio.
Yes. Which that's not a spoiler because we find that out at the end of episode 1.
It was. I think it's the first episode.
Yeah. And then we don't see Amanda Waller then until the end, afterwards, because she hardly has a voice at all.
Yeah, Myrn.
Yes, Myrn's the butterfly guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, he was really like boring until like we found out he was a butterfly, I guess.
Yeah, he was kind of just
which was
the classic like strict leader guy.
Yeah, that was probably intentional, I would think. So we got them, and then, at least according to Wikipedia, the only other main character that we haven't talked about yet is August Smith, which is his dad,
Oh yeah,
Peacemaker's dad.
White Dragon.
Yep, exactly. Which that was really interesting. That kind of gets political. We'll dive into that in a minute here. Well, so actually, let's just dive into it now, I guess, because now my mind's on that track. So let me explain something. I talk a lot about how I do not like when politics are, pushed in, like the media. And not the media per se, but like TV and film. Because I want to enjoy it. I want to hear a good story regardless of political stuff. And so when they started bringing in, Peacemaker's dad, the White Dragon, I started thinking to myself, like, are they going to use this as a character they can use to bust on, like conservatives? And thankfully, so like I kind of view it like this.
I don't think it was really a bust on like conservatives, but more just like a bust on just racists in general.
Yeah, and I agree with that too, because
like White Dragon is just a racist supervillain.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that's the thing I had to figure where they were coming. Once I figured out that they were coming from a place where it's like this guy's not just a conservative, but he is actually a whack job and a like legitimate like racist, almost like a KKK type of guy. Then it's like, yeah, there's no sympathy for him. So I think that's good because again, if you're gonna be political, and they weren't like really political in this show, but I mean there were still a few things that sort of edged into that. They made him a very black and white bad guy, and they didn't just say he has these political views that makes him a bad guy. He was just. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, and what I was gonna say is like if they're gonna like bust on like either side of the political spectrum, like just like put it on both of them. Don't put it on just one. Like I like how they kind of do that in this show almost. How they get on both sides of the political spectrum, especially with like both like with like climate change and stuff. They get on like how people say they're gonna do stuff about it, but just don't. And they kind of on the one side you have like Peacemaker's father. They kind of bust down on both sides.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's also, I mean, I keep bringing I brought this up in a few episodes ago. The Shang-Chi, that's when I brought this up. My favorite show being Community. I love Community, and one of the reasons I love it, it is so politically incorrect, and it makes fun of literally every single person from any religious or political spectrum, and it's so good. I love that. It's equally balanced because it makes fun of everybody. But yeah, again, I think it was good.
And we see that with Peacemaker too. It makes fun of it doesn't hold back. It makes fun of everyone.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so I'm saying I appreciated that because I'm afraid that they were going into that territory and they didn't, and I like that. Again, I try not to get too political on here. I don't want to. This is not my political soapbox. That's the other podcast I'm looking into starting. I'm not making that up. I'm actually being kind of serious. But anyways, again, I digress. But yeah, the characters were all really good. One person we completely skimmed over. I don't know how we did this, okay?
What's the best character?
The best character in the show, yes, Vigilante.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. You go first, because I know you've probably got a lot to say about him as well.
So, like, Adrian Chase, we've seen him once on screen before in the Arrowverse TV show, and it ruined his character. I hated how they did him in that. He wasn't the vigilante. He was Prometheus, I think.
Yeah.
And I hated how they did that. He was like all business type, but like Vigilante first appears in Teen Titans back in the 80s. Like he has like a really sad origin story. Like his entire family was killed, and he just wants to train to like get revenge on people who do that kind of stuff. So he like trains to get like to this peak form. But like he's more of a serious guy. And then I love how they take him in Peacemaker, and he's just the goofiest character like ever. He's so stupid. Like from the moment we first see him, like he's working as like a busboy or waiter at a restaurant, and then he just like goes outside once he sees Peacemaker and just starts dancing.
Yeah.
I was like laughing out loud when I saw him.
Yeah, that was really good. Now I don't know a whole lot about the character in the comics. You brought up Arrow, which I think is a great point, because the weird thing in Arrow is Adrian Chase was Prometheus, but they actually did have Vigilante as a completely different guy in Arrow. And I just thought the character in Arrow, and it was just kind of meh. I didn't realize that they did that until watching this show, actually. I'm like, Adrian Chase, that name sounds so familiar in comics. And I'm like, is that Vigilante from Arrow? And then I just do some research, and I'm like, that's weird. Also, the guy that played Prometheus in Arrow, since we're talking about that, Adrian Chase, he also played a character named Hector on The Electric Company on PBS Kids I used to watch when I was little. I loved that show. And then seeing him be the bad guy on Arrow was kind of weird, but also kind of awesome at the same time. I know I'm getting on a bit of a tangent, but Vigilante, yes, clearly the best character. Okay, he is the most lovable psychopath I've ever seen.
Yeah.
If I ever had to get killed by any character in anything, it would be him. You know?
And I like how he just kills for any law breaking. Like, he's like, I remember they're like smoking, and he's like, I would have killed you guys a year ago.
Oh yeah. And then he makes the joke about killing people for doing graffiti.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous. Like, they're kind of just, they take like the character from the comics to like the extreme, how he's just like this, like, get pretty much a psycho killer, honestly, just for any law breaking. Just like, no, dead, don't care.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I'm having a hard time finding anything else to say about him because he's just so lovable yet psychotic.
Yeah, he also has like the Jeffrey Dahmer type glasses, which I never really picked that up until the last episode. I was like looking at, I was like, oh, those are like supposed to resemble. I'm guessing they're supposed to resemble like the Jeffrey Dahmer glasses.
Definitely. But the thing that's so funny about him is because he is like just such a psychopath, but it's kind of hard to describe. It's like he's a psychopath, but he's so like cheery and like upbeat. Not in a creepy way, though. Like in an actual, like genuine, like lovable way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like I've never seen a character quite like this, and I absolutely love Vigilante. Just anytime he's on screen, it's like that's the character I want to care about right now.
And you will laugh anytime that he's on the screen. Like,
oh yeah.
I like laughed out loud so much during anything he said. Like, I don't know if we could talk about Vigilante like the whole time for this episode, honestly, because there's just so many moments. I don't know how far we want to get, but like, when they have the butterfly out in the jar.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Peacemaker's like, it's only yes or no questions, and he's like, "Is your favorite color teal?" It's just he's so stupid.
I know. That's exactly
like in the last
ready to bring up too.
There's
part there.
Oh, there's so many good scenes.
I know, but yeah, Vigilante is just the best. I don't want to talk about him too much because, like I said, we can literally fill this whole episode fanboying about how great Vigilante is. Another thing I think worth bringing up is the villain of this series are, I forget what their species is called, but they're the butterflies.
Yeah, did they have a specific species name?
I think they did. I just don't remember because I think they just refer to them as butterflies most of the time.
Yeah, that's probably something really weird. Like, I remember the butterfly in Murd's head was named like Caliclic or something. It's something really weird. Like, you could barely pronounce it.
Definitely. But yeah, and those were, I was just literally like this afternoon before we were filming this, I was watching an interview with, someone was interviewing James Gunn, and they were talking about the series and stuff. And the butterfly villains are completely original. Yeah, like apparently he says he wrote a movie back when he was like really young, James Gunn. I guess it never took off, but he wrote this movie and it was kind of had the same premise with the butterflies being the bad guy and stuff. So he just reused that as his villain for Peacemaker. Which is actually pretty interesting.
I kind of like them having like an original villain that we've never seen before. So because we don't know like what they're gonna do, what their motives are, what's gonna happen with them.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which I also really like because, you know, James Gunn, if we look back at the Suicide Squad, how he changes a lot of characters and kills off a lot. You know, so I think it's nice having something original. So it's like we don't know what's gonna happen. If we go back to like the Arrowverse shows, one of the issues I had with them is that I would hear a character's name and be like, wait a minute, and then I look up the name and I can find like a character in the comics with that name, and then I can kind of foreshadow what's going to happen to that character in a way. So them having an original villain, I think, really helps because then it's like the only way to know what's going to happen next is to watch.
Yeah.
So that was really good. I think that was very good call, I suppose. And I think that might even play into why it was such a great season.
Yeah, what I find really good about is how they didn't wait until like halfway through to show the villain, like the second to last episode. Like my biggest, not to rattle on the MCU shows, but my biggest problem with every MCU show so far is that they've waited to like the second to last episode, or even the beginning of the last episode, to introduce like the big bad villain of the whole the whole series, which gives no time for the villain to grow, gives barely any time for any discussion on the villain or any huge talks on it. Like, it's just like, oh, the big bad villain, there it is. Episode's over, season's over. Like, they wait too late, and that's just kind of annoying with how they did it. Every single MCU show has been like that. With Peacemaker, like, it was like, first episode, villain introduction, same villain the whole way throughout, and then they grow on it as it goes on.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I'd like to just take a minute or two to talk about the soundtrack, okay? Because it was awesome. It's all, I mean, I'm sure you know this by now if you're watching or listening to this, but all like glam metal, and I love it. The theme song.
I have a question for you, Kyle.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you want to taste it?
I knew you were gonna say that. Yes, sure. But yes, Wigwam, if I'm pronouncing their name correctly. Do you want to taste it? The theme song. Let me tell you something. I listened the crap out of that song after Peacemaker. Okay.
Same.
It's just, it's so good. I was inspired.
The lyrics are so random too.
Yeah, I know it doesn't really make any sense, but a lot of really good songs make no sense, like Bohemian Rhapsody, for example. But I actually made a mixtape CD in my car, okay, called Kyle's Rad Rock and Roll Mixtape. And I was very much inspired by the soundtrack of Peacemaker to make it. And the first track on that mixtape is Do You Want to Taste It? But yeah, it's so good. I absolutely, like, even when I was waiting for a new episode to come out, I just love how they posted the intro on YouTube, HBO Max. They posted the intro. Because that intro, that whole dance sequence, okay, it's so cheesy and it's so beautiful at the same time.
So fun to watch.
Exactly. It's like I cannot get enough of watching the Peacemaker intro.
And especially with shows that barely have intros anymore, like almost no show has an intro anymore. Well, at least like adult shows, like most kid shows have like a theme song, but any adult show, there's no intro. There's like an opening crawl with just like the title, and that's it. And then like Peacemaker like brought the intro thing back and did it so perfect.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's so good. I absolutely. The intro, everything, the music, the style, and all that, it's really good. And not to mention, the glam metal, rock and roll, plays into the story in a few spots as well. The 11th Street Kids, that type of thing. And they use Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue very well.
The piano scene with John Cena. John Cena actually played the piano for Home Sweet Home.
Yeah, I heard about that. Because that track's on Spotify now, and John Cena's credited as the artist.
I've listened to that a few times.
Oh yeah, it's really good. At first, when I listened to it, I was listening. I'm like, this sounds so familiar, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then I forget where I saw it on social media somewhere, and then I was like, oh. And I went back and re-listened to it, and I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
The only thing music wise I'm disappointed by in Peacemaker was they used the song Kiss Me Deadly, but they only used it at the end for the credits. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because it was like, I think it was the end of episode 6. Yeah. They used it at the credits. And I was like, dang it. Because that's such a good song.
One thing I liked is how there's even like a more local band in the show too, with Kicks, Don't Close Your Eyes, and the second to last episode.
That's true, yeah. Because Kicks, I don't want to tell people exactly where we live, but we live like near PA Maryland state line, and so yeah, Kicks. Are they actually out of Hagerstown?
Yeah, pretty sure out of Hagerstown.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, because my uncle, he's a big like music guy, and he loves Kicks, and he knows like he's the type of person that goes on the internet and stalks celebrities. Um, and so he knows a lot about Kicks. They, I think, I could be saying this all wrong, but I think some of the members of Kicks teach at one of the schools. They teach music somewhere in this
Huh.
area. Yeah, it's one of the more like don't want to say prestigious per se, but like one of the more high end schools, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, they do use some Kicks, and that's cool to hear because we have close geographical ties to the band, so that's pretty neat. But yeah, it's so good. And then the playlist is on Spotify with all the music. Great playlist.
Yeah, James Gunn official playlist, and James. If you look at James Gunn other playlists on Spotify, he has some really good playlists. Like all of his music taste is
mhm.
like probably the greatest music taste that I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, James Gunn just on so good. I follow him on Spotify too, but it's fantastic. Now I will say, when we talk about music, I think the greatest. Actually, let me put it like this: from a very epic cinema, I guess, for lack of a better term, standpoint, there's one scene in Peacemaker, okay, with music and everything that I think is just done so beautifully that I don't say it hits me in the fields because that makes me sound like I'm emotional, but it's like I felt like, you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was the scene when the butterflies are going after the police and taking over the police station.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because here's what I think was so great about that scene. So they set up earlier in the episode that the whenever Butterfly takes over a new host, they kind of forget how to smile. So their face is all like doing weird things, right?
Mhm.
And so what happens then after that scene, after all these butterflies swarm and take over the entire police force, you have all those police covered in blood walking down that hall with that crappy fluorescent lighting, all doing these creepy like smiles because they're all trying to relearn how to smile in slow motion while that one song's playing. I think it's called. I remember the
I
band
know
name
it's
is
like something
Reckless
about
Love.
something monster.
Yeah, let me. I can't look it up right now, but I think it's called. It might just be called Monster. I don't know, but the band name is Reckless Love. Either way, though, that scene, I was just like, dang, that is just so well put together.
And also like they're showing Augie Smith, the White Dragon, like
Mm-hmm.
getting his armor and stuff and getting like
Yeah.
all of his like
Mm-hmm.
bronies and stuff together. So like you see, because there's still
Mm-hmm.
like 2 episodes left after
Mm-hmm.
this episode that's setting up all the villains, and like they have this song about monsters playing in the background. And you see like both setting
Mm-hmm.
up both villains of the show in like
Yeah,
one big moment.
that's true. I almost forgot about that part actually, but yeah, and that whole scene was just put together so beautifully, so well. I absolutely loved it. Um, but anyways, I digress. We were kind of. What else were we talking about? See, it's hard for me because this is a series, not a movie.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like
so much more to talk about.
there's so much to talk about. It's like it's hard to just focus in on like one or two parts.
One thing that I liked is the random name drops of DC characters
Oh yeah, that was
like
great.
Batmite, Kite Man, Green Arrow,
Oh yeah, definitely.
and the random rumors Peacemaker has on superheroes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was good
All
stuff.
there was, and I remember they're like, where do you get this stuff? And he's like, Google, and they're like, Google's not always right. It's like, oh, so you think you're smarter than Google? And like, just this Peacemaker, like,
Oh yeah.
he's such a he's I don't want to say stupid, but he has actually I feel like stupid might be the right word because he is really dumb.
He's kind of stupid. Here's something interesting though. Jennifer Holland and James Gunn got engaged the week we are recording this.
Yeah, I saw that
So hey, congratulations for them.
because yeah, I saw they've been together I think since before Guardians 2. So I think 2015 is when they started dating.
I did the math. I heard somewhere it was 7 years, and so 2015 would be 7 years ago.
Wow, that's crazy.
Oh yeah,
2015 was 7 years ago.
I know. Well, I think we talked a while ago about how the Amazing Spider-Man was over. Well, the Amazing. Hold on a second. Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Amazing Spider-Man was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was 8 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's so weird how that happens because it doesn't feel like that long ago.
Yeah, just like the Suicide Squad was almost a year ago now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is because it'll be August. Will be a year. But yeah, totally crazy.
But, well, back to Peacemaker. Jennifer Holland plays Amelia Harcourt in the show, and like we see like a glimpse of her character, and then Steve Agee. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
As economist, those characters like had slight appearances in the Suicide Squad. Like they kind of take over after they knock out Amanda Waller, and I was like, oh, these are probably just like one-off characters, and then they get in trouble with Amanda Waller for doing that, of course. And so the Suicide Squad end credit scene is them like in the hospital with Peacemaker. It's like, I can't believe she sent us here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So like their whole punishment is having to deal with like the dumbest member of the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, which that's pretty entertaining, pretty funny. But also kind of building into that, I mentioned in our previous Suicide Squad episode that Peacemaker and his character. Again, I didn't want to say too much because I knew not the episode to talk about that. But again, I think this. Actually, let me back up a little bit. I mentioned in the last episode how we kind of see Peacemaker after watching Peacemaker series and rewatching the Suicide Squad. I get a different idea. Like he's a character who wants to kind of find his place. He wants to know where he belongs, where he fits in. And so in this series, I think we can see that. I think the scene where he's in his trailer and he's crying because he had to kill Rick Flag because he thought him and Rick Flag could be good friends. I think that's just really telling, as that was his desire, I suppose. And then I think this season, because there's a lot of team stuff that's talked about and addressed, them either being a good team or a bad team, that kind of theme is just in there throughout. And I think that is really sort of what Peacemaker's looking for. He wants some stability. He wants to find a place where he belongs. He wants to find some friends. And I think he sort of does that throughout the course of the season. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And also, like when you were saying how he's like crying in bed about Rick Flag, he's like crying. He's like, man, I try to make friends, but I just ruin it every single time. And like we definitely see that in the show. Like he can't form a relationship with anyone at all because he treats people so badly.
Yes.
Because we know it's because of how his father raised him and how awful his father was. And then I don't know if we want to. I guess since we're talking about it as a whole, like, so like he's stuck in this one place his like whole life. He's stuck in this constant cycle of just like being an awful person, never able to push past who he was, and he's kind of just like stuck as who he was and can never advance past that until in the penultimate episode he kills his father, and he's finally able to like become who he always has really wanted to be. Yeah,
definitely. Which I think that's a really good point. But I think it's also important to mention how he's not done with his father yet, because they've kind of alluded that in season 2, he's going to be having, he's going to be dealing with the impact that his father still had on his life. Like, he may have killed his father, and that got him past a certain point. But now, I almost kind of see, like, the fact that he's seeing, like, visions of his dad again is sort of a physical embodiment of him still struggling with his upbringing and all of his. It's like an eternal thing, if that makes sense. I'm not good with those type of fancy words, but yeah, it's interesting.
And also, what I just remembered is in the comics, Peacemaker's father is a Nazi. I just remember that. And but speaking of his helmet in the comics, in the comics, Peacemaker believes like his helmet has the souls of the people he killed in it. And so in the final episode, we see his dad, like, his body appears over where the helmet was.
Really?
So I don't know if that'll play. I don't know if that'll play an effect in the next season.
That's a interesting observation. I never knew that. But yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense because like the first time he sees him in the woods, you know, they find the helmet right next to where he was seeing his dad, and then at that last final scene on his porch. It's a good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theory. Hold on. No, hold on. There we go. To that Illuminati. Anyways, yeah. But I'm looking forward to season 2. It should be good. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. I will say there were no deaths in this that like shook me at all.
Yeah.
I know when Myrn died. That was I didn't really get emotional about it. I was just kind of like, oh, that kind of stinks. So I'm just starting to like him a little bit.
I was kind of expecting that, honestly, though.
Yeah, and I wasn't really expecting it, but it didn't surprise me. Because he was definitely in the minority, I suppose, for lack of a better term. Because all the other alien dudes wanted to do the stuff on the cow and all that jazz. Oh,
yeah, he was just against.
Yeah. One character, again, we forgot to talk about is Eagly.
Oh!
How can we forget?
In the first episode when he has Eagly in the car and they're like, why do you have an eagle in your car? And he's like, oh, that's Eagly. And like, do you have a daughter named Daughtery? And they keep like making fun of him for the worst possible name for a pet.
Yeah. It's so good. It's just written so well. But yeah, Eagly, I mean, Eagly doesn't really do much. I mean, Eagly can do a trick or two.
He can fight.
Yeah.
Like in one episode, he like starts like clawing at the racist people and like attacking them, and
that's true. What's the Eagle? Eagly hugged Peacemaker twice, which was very interesting, to say the least.
Eagle can't hug people. It's.
Mm-hmm. You know, that was also. Have you ever sat and realized how illegal it is to have a bald eagle as a pet?
Yeah, and I've also heard that they're terrible. Like if any people have, like try to keep them as a pet, and like they're awful. Like they're awful birds.
Oh,
like
yeah.
not like as awful. Like but they're like terrible to people.
Oh yeah, I mean that doesn't surprise me at all because you know these are predators. Well, any animal that's a predator that is not raised from a very young age to not be a predator is going to end up a predator and is going to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Hostile. That's the word I'm looking for. Very hostile
yeah.
Toward its captors, for lack of a better term, once again. Good stuff, good villains. Now, let's talk for a minute here about the Justice League's appearance at the end.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you just straight up in general. What were your thoughts on that?
So at first I was like, oh, it's just going to be all stand-ins. Like there's no way they got all 4 members. And of course, well, Wonder Woman was a stand-in. We never see her face. And then Superman was a stand-in. Don't even know if Henry Cavill's playing Superman anymore. But then like Peacemaker walks past him as he's like yelling at him. He's like, you're late. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, is that actually Jason Momoa? And then he talks and I'm like, oh my gosh, Jason Momoa is actually in this. And then
Ezra Miller
is also there. And I'm like, no way. Like I was watching, I was like, my jaw just dropped and I was like, oh my gosh. It kind of just like blew me away. It was completely unexpected. And
oh yeah.
I know how it never got leaked or anything because I remember like hearing James Gunn didn't let the episode release to anyone. Like the reviewers and stuff were not sent the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
like
makes
that
a lot
stuff was kept like really tight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which that's good because if you look at Marvel has recently been having a bit of a leak problem, mostly with Spider-Man No Way Home, because a lot of stuff got leaked beforehand. Now, my conspiracy is that some of that leaks were intentional. Again, that's my theory.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, they did a good job keeping that airtight. I did have the Justice League thing unfortunately spoiled for me because, let me explain, Thursdays are my busiest day of the week. So this is for the viewers. I know you probably know this already, Colin. But Thursdays are my busiest day of the week, and I don't get a chance to actually sit down and watch Peacemaker until when I get home from work at like 9 o'clock in the evening. And so I get up in the morning, I'm checking social media. looking to see if anything was interesting posted on YouTube, and someone just posts. The thumbnail is like the silhouettes of the Justice League in Peacemaker, and it's like Peacemaker episode 8, Justice League shows up, and I'm like, come on. But that if I would have, I'm sure my reaction to it would have been very different if I didn't have it spoiled. But I did, unfortunately, not because I wanted to have it spoiled, because that's just how the internet works. But I thought it was definitely interesting. Jason Momoa as Aquaman is always a pleasure to see. Ezra Miller as the Flash. Did Ezra Miller even have any lines?
I think he did. There was some banter between him and Aquaman, which I love the banter because that was honestly one of the best depictions of a Justice League relationship we've ever seen on the big screen.
Definitely, but it was only like 20 seconds. It wasn't very long.
Yeah, it was really short, but it was just great.
Yeah, I think the pandemic probably had something to do with that.
Yeah.
So I think they could get Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller, but it wouldn't surprise me if literally they just had like 2 hours of shooting, just isolated, like without any other cast members there. Because they were filming in the pandemic and all these crazy pandemic laws and stuff. I believe if they wanted to film anything, the entire cast and crew had to quarantine together for 2 weeks before they could do that. And depending on the development on how that scene played out, I would totally understand if they weren't sure if that was even going to happen, the Justice League cameo. So when they found out it was going to happen, it was already too late for them to quarantine. And besides, if Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa were working on something else, they couldn't quarantine for 2 weeks with the cast before they could film. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my guess maybe with that is I don't think we ever saw like a shot of Ezra Miller and Aquaman like directly next to each other.
Yeah.
I think it would go like back and forth. So I'm guessing like because the new Aquaman shooting right now, and they wrapped up filming on the new Flash. They probably just filmed that with the stuff they're filming for that movie.
That's possible. That would make sense. But yeah, either way, it was neat. It was really short though. Like I sort of wanted a little more from that.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. I thought it was good. That was really, really good stuff.
Another Justice League member we got like confirmed was Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Green Arrow's existence is confirmed now, which I'm hoping that means we can get a Green Arrow movie or show or something.
Oh yeah, I love the Green Arrow character. Last episode when we were talking about the Suicide Squad, I brought up Amanda Waller and stuff, and obviously, spoiler alert, but I mean, too late for a spoiler alert. We spoiled everything else already. What's her face? Amanda Waller's daughter, Leota.
Adabaya.
Yes. She I'm just looking at first names. Anyways, she at the end exposes the existence of the Suicide Squad and stuff for Amanda Waller. Pointing fingers and, not name calling, but associating a name with the act so that they can blame someone. Some people were saying on the internet that, this is making sure we're not going to get another Suicide Squad movie. And I'm like, not necessarily. Because just because Amanda Waller and the Suicide Squad has been exposed, that just means that they're public knowledge now. Not necessarily that, don't get me wrong, if this were realistic, I don't see any way that the Suicide Squad wouldn't get shut down. But then again, this is also based on comics. So I don't see that as a nail in the coffin for having the Suicide Squad ever come back. I just think it would be a very
they'll definitely return.
Oh yeah, definitely. It would just be a very different Suicide Squad film.
Yeah, it'll probably deal with the effects of what happened at the end of Peacemaker, with him being exposed and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. But Peacemaker would probably, I can't imagine, unless they would come up with a good reason, but at this point, at the end of Peacemaker Season 1, I can't imagine they'd bring Peacemaker back into the Suicide Squad if they ever did a third Suicide Squad film.
Yeah, I wouldn't really see a need for him to be brought back. He kind of has his own story now. He has his own arc.
Yeah, and he
doesn't really need to be a part of that.
Yeah, they kind of just finished and answered that, like really well, I think.
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention was how each character kind of had their own arc and throughout the whole series. Like each character had their own focus and like own story. Like with Economos, like we see like him being called Dyedbeard the whole time. And then in the last episode we find out why, and you're like, why is the story for his beard like the saddest part of this whole show?
That's true.
And then we see like Vigilante and Peacemaker become friends, and like all of them like partying in the bus and stuff after they like, I think it's right after they kill all those butterflies and stuff, and he like puts the saw through the gorilla. And we kind of see like a relationship forming between them. As like in the first episode, they all like hated each other. They're just like, oh, we're forced to work with them, and then they're finally like forming a relationship, and all the characters grow. They grow off one another.
Yeah, which again, I think that really specifically fulfills Peacemaker's need, which is to have a place of belonging. That again loops back into the Suicide Squad and everything I noted about that and saw. And, why he does the crappy, scummy things he does in the Suicide Squad is because he's trying to impress someone because, he wants to find a purpose in people, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Overall, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Do you have
There's so much to talk about for this show.
Yeah, I know. I don't really know, like, we've hit all my highlights. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I think we've hit all the big things pretty much.
So we hit all the big things. Do you have anything else that you really want to bring up before we do our ratings?
On Judo Master.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about him.
I almost forgot about him, and like he's such a random. He's just randomly put in there. Like I had never heard of Judo Master until Peacemaker. He's like one of those random like C-list. I don't know if he's a hero or villain in the comics. I had personally never heard of him.
Yeah.
It was a random character to throw in there, and he just kind of came back the whole series too. Like, I was like, oh, he's dead, and then it's like, oh, he's alive. Then you think he's dead, and I guess at the end he's just like, he really seems to have no purpose anymore with the butterflies gone,
except for eating flaming hot Cheetos.
Yeah, and one last thing with the butterflies, gone. How like the butterflies' whole goal, they were like, we see what was happening on our planet, like. People like all these people are like claiming to care about the planet and like they don't really care, like they're just using it in the media and stuff, and like I like the message how it's like we need to decide on our own what to do, like I almost said John Cena, think Christopher Smith Peacemaker's like he wants people to make their own decisions. He doesn't want someone else making the decision for the world. He wants the people of the world to make the decision, which I really liked.
Yeah, well, like that ending and the message, I was kind of confused by it. Because it's like, well, not so much I was confused by it. I was just kind of confused, like, what they were trying to say by it. Because I can definitely see it the way that you brought up. But the way I saw it, being like, oh, we're going to yada, 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 help save the world and stuff. Because the most plain interpretation I can think of that is, when Peacemaker, killed the cow, he was like, screw that, I really don't care. And it's just kind of like a selfish thing. But then it was also seen as like a good selfish thing because, protagonist, antagonist, all that stuff. But then, I don't know. It left me kind of confused, I suppose. But not confused as like I don't understand what happened. Confused as in I don't quite understand what the message was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a little confusing. You're like, oh, is he just like, does he not care? But you realize he does care. He doesn't want the people to be strapped down for someone else making their decisions.
Yeah, but I just kind of need to chew on that and process that a little bit more, I suppose. At the time of this recording, it's been like what? It's been a week or 2 weeks since.
I think a week. Which stinks. There's literally nothing new out this week.
Yeah,
to watch.
I know it's not fun, but on the bright side, I have a long, backed up, piled up list of things I want to watch and stuff too. So at least that'll be refreshing, I suppose. But yes. So before we land this plane, Colin, any more things you want to bring up?
I think I've hit all my highlights.
Okay, because I mean, of course, we could talk about this more and more, but I don't want this to be like 2 hours long.
Yeah. I'll ask you your rating first. What would you rate this show?
Ooh, we're switching it up a little bit. So, Peacemaker, really good. Definitely, I think, the best DC live action show. In terms of live action superhero shows, I probably wouldn't say it's the best, but I would still say it's really good and it's up there with the best. So that being said, I'd probably give it an 8.
I think, yeah, my opinion's about the same as yours. It's definitely not the best superhero show, but I would put the top 3.
Oh yeah, it's really good. I just don't know if I consider it the best.
Yeah. Like when you have stuff like on Amazon Prime, like The Boys, Invincible, and then you have Netflix with Daredevil. Like those are all wonderfully written, really well done. Like those are like kind of all like Peacemaker's on tier with those. But it's kind of hard to like put if it's at the top or not because they're just all of them are so good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And in their each own specific way.
Yeah.
So I'd probably sit with you, give Peacemaker an 8.
Nice. Well, on the bright side, that makes it easy because then we don't have to sit and think what's the middle ground between both of our opinions, which means that the Friendly Neighborhood podcast officially gives Peacemaker Season 1 an 8 out of 10. Before we wrap up, I want to make a few quick statements, things I want to point out to our faithful listeners. Thank you guys. We love you all. But we've been doing a lot of reviews lately, and part of the reason why we're doing that is because we planned to do that months ago, to do a lot of these ratings and things since we started the podcast, and we just haven't gotten around to them because we've been really busy. So we're sort of trying to play catch up. So ideally, what we'll do is when like the Batman comes out, hopefully a week or so after that, we'll have a review out. But I don't want to make this podcast solely reviews. It's just we're playing catch up. That's why you're seeing a lot of reviews come out as of lately. But just making that a point for anyone who's listening. We're not changing. We're just trying to catch up with the rest of the world, if that makes sense. But you can stay tuned because we have our Spider-Man No Way Home review. It's going to be coming out, and our Venom Let There Be Carnage review. And then hopefully we should have some time. We'll be caught up with movies throughout the end of 2021, which we also did Peacemaker. That's new, so glad we could do that. But anyways, yes, there we have it. So, Colin, any other final closing remarks before we close up this thing?
I'm good.
Alrighty, well,
I think I hit everything.
Cool beans. That being said, this is your Friendly Neighborhood podcast starring Kyle Swope and Colin Donato. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Friendly Neighbor Pod. The Spider-Man theme was originally composed by Bob Harris and covered by Jacob Swope for this episode. The Friendly Neighborhood podcast is a Lumberjack media production. Thank you guys all for listening. God bless you. God bless America. We will see you all later.